Cornerback is among the most talented, versatile, and deepest positions in the 2026 NFL draft class.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Damian Parson. That's Keith Sanchez. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. During the tournament, FanDuel is offering $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Guys, we are finishing our top 50 big board discussion, panning from yesterday's episode. We're going to close out the week. We're going to kick the show off, guys, or we're going to end the show talking about the offensive line, offensive tackles, interior offensive line. How do we feel about the group? Pinpoint where some of the guys are. Then we have the linebackers. Is this a loaded group? This is a great class or just a good class? Let's kick this thing off, Keith, talking DBs. And let's talk about the corners, Keith. The corners, we're going to start with corners first and then get into the safeties. I think I might have said it at the end of one of the episodes, Keith, that I felt like this DB class is a really talented class. It's one, to me, especially from a cornerback standpoint, this is a class where it's talented, versatile, and then you have depth. So let's go ahead and start off. Our top corner comes in at number 8. We have Mansoor out of LSU. At 15, might have to move him up. We'll see. Jermod McCoy, after busting the 4.38 at his pro day. Jermod McCoy out of Tennessee came in at 15. Avieon Terrell, Clemson quarterback, came in at 19. Our next corner comes around, what is it? Blanket. Oh, right here. 46, we have Chris Johnson. No, I'm sorry. 29, D'Angelo Pons out of Indiana. And then 46, we have Chris Johnson out of San Diego State, Keith. This cornerback class, I always talk about just the fact, building your wide receiver like a basketball team, your wide receiver room. And I always say the same thing for corners. We talked about it. You need corners that can match up size, speed, explosiveness. This cornerback class has that, right? And of course, our top two guys who we've talked about recently a lot, Mansoor and Jermod McCoy. I want to talk about at 19, Avieon Terrell, Keith. I think he's the consensus guy to truly be viewed as CB3 right now.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's well deserving, but also I look at it like this, like he's CB3, but to me, he's nickel 1, right? And we know how important the nickel position can be. And I think if your team right now, I constantly look at the Dallas Cowboys because they have some outside guys, right? You got Siobhan Revel, right? He's a longer corner strider. You got Duran Bland, right? Longer strider. The position that they need to address is the nickel position, right? And there are a few other teams that picked before that need to address the nickel position. And like you said, you go to the Trip McDuffie's, and I told you that was my comp for him. The nickel position can be so important because if you have a really good nickel, right, you can stay in nickel the entire time, right? Because you have a run supporter, right? So you have somebody to kind of play that linebacker-esque type position, but then also you don't have to worry about taking them off the field. Neither that you have to take a linebacker off the field if you have if it's a passing down or something like that. So a really good nickel DP, I think is like a queen on the chessboard, right? There's so many different things and versatility that they can provide. So I'm right there with you on that. I think just with this, right, us releasing our big board tied in tandem with Jermod McCoy running a 4.38, I want to ask you, what does that do for you with Jermod McCoy, being able to see him finally move? I mean, it's been over a year and we've discussed it. What does that do for you?
Man, I think it answered the question about health, right? Like before his pro day, it was a couple of days before his pro day, he was working with Oliver Davis III. Shout out to OD3. Works with a lot of the top corners from Cooper DeJean, Patrick Surtain, J.C. Horn. He works with pretty much all the top guys and one of the best DB trainers in the game. And he put out a clip, I think maybe a 2-minute clip of Jermod McCoy going through drills and, changing direction. And I was like, he looks good. He looks healthy. Now we got to see what he runs. And he ran a 4.38. I think he had a 10.7 broad and a 38-inch vert. That lets me know that explosiveness is there, Keith. And then to watch his movement skill, because at the end of the day, I got Dallas Cowboy fans because I tweeted out on I think it was Tuesday, right after the pro day and everything. My comp for him, which we talked about on the pod, I think I said on the pod when we did his breakdown, was Quinyon Mitchell. I feel like I get a lot of the same things with him I got with Quignon. Guys that can play off coverage, play zone, really good zone eyes, triggering, downhill on routes, can make plays, at the catch point, create turnovers, things of that nature. But I think Jermod didn't play solely quarters like Quignon did at Toledo. Jermod played more man to man and everything coming out of Tennessee. But some, Dallas Cowboys fans are like, I don't want him at 12. I don't want him at 12. We don't have a good history with the injured players. And I'm like, if he just tore his ACL, you just took Siobhan Revel right after he tore his ACL. Mm-hmm. Like Jermod McCoy tore his ACL in 2025 of January. By the time we get to week 1, he'll be almost a year and a half removed from surgery, right? Like, so long as he is where he needs to be mentally, because Keith, as you know, that's the biggest part of that recovery stage. It's more mental than anything. So I think for just seeing him do what he did at his pro day, the numbers, he did some field drills and everything. I think he will end up being a top 15 or 12 pick when it's all said and done. Keith, depending on how high Mansoor goes, I think he's going to follow shortly behind him. If not, depending on the team, he might go in front.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that 4.38 did a lot for him at the end of the day. As far as like maybe sustaining / elevating his draft stock. DP, let's do this, man. If you want to get the list and read off the safeties, right? Because we want to talk about where some of these safeties fell. So we want to give you the slots that they fell within our top 50. And then there's one key guy I want to discuss that fell within our 50.
So at number one player on the board, number one safety is Caleb Downs out of Ohio State. Then we have Dylan Thunderman out of Oregon at 16. We have EMW, Emmanuel McNeil Warren at 20, right? So that's 3 inside the top 25 at the safety position, Keith. And then we go all the way to pick 50, well, not pick 50, but the 50th slot on our big board is AJ Haulcy out of LSU. So DP, we have what, four safeties in the top 50?
That's exactly where I want to stop. AJ Haulcy. I told you I had an NFL comp. And I think this is our first time probably discussing AJ Haulcy together, period, right? He's just a prospect. Like, we not only not discussed him on a podcast that much, we haven't talked about it personally, right?
Personally,
about him. This was the 2021 draft, I believe, a 2020 draft. It was the same draft with Xavier McKinney, Grant Delpit, and who I believe was in that draft was this undersized safety out of Minnesota, Antoine Winfield Jr. That's who he reminds me of. And it's just the versatility. And I remember liking Antoine Winfield Jr. a lot. I'm like, man, this guy just gets it, right? But there was a safety out of Cal. He got drafted to the Jets. He was super fast. I'm gonna remember his name.
Is it Ashton Davis?
Yes, that's exactly who it was. And he didn't check Ashton Davis checked the measurable box, right? Because I think he was like 6'1", 200 plus pounds.
Yeah, he was tall, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, and he ran a 4.3, right? And everybody's like, okay, take Ashton Davis over. And I'm like, nah, this Antoine Winfield kid, he just gets it, right? And you see it now, right? Antoine Winfield in the NFL is a Pro Bowl, all-pro-esque type of football player, got his big payday from the Tampa Bay Bucks, one of the leaders of that defense. And I see a lot of the same things, not only just from a build perspective, but the versatility to play in 1 high or 2 high situations and play it efficiently and effectively, right? And that's 2 words that I consistently use because playing a safety is it comes down to so many different things, right? It comes down to anticipation. It comes down to angles. It comes down to, like just being able to see the field entirety. And I think AJ Haulcy does that. So I was glad that we collectively put him in the top 50 because he's a guy that I'm aggressive on that I like.
Yeah, and for some fans, like I got to get eyes on Zaki Wheatley from Penn State. There's a couple of the safeties got to get eyes on and everything. We won't have our final, top 50 big board, maybe push it to the top 75 or whatever, until right before the draft. So this is subject to change. But with Haulcy, Keith, I watched him when he was at Houston when I was with the Draft Network, right? And I liked the tackling, but I wasn't a fan of the coverage. Seeing how he's developed and going to LSU and becoming somewhat of a ball hawk and making plays on the ball, like and pairing that with the physicality he brings as a hard-hitting safety, I think, you know what, Keith, I'm gonna take your comp and I'm gonna add one to it as kind of a combo comp. Remember, I just had it up. TJ Ward. TJ Ward, who used to play for the Denver Broncos. He was 5'11", like 215, hard-hitting, physical guy that can walk down into the box, blitz, run, defend. I think A.J. Haulcy has the physicality of a TJ Ward and then the coverage ability of an Antoine Winfield Jr., where you say, you know what, we could play you in multiple places and the impact will be felt.
Yep, I agree. DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. We talked about the defensive backs, right? We discussed cornerbacks and safeties where they fell in our top 50 board for Locked On NFL Draft. Let's do this. Let's move on. I'm gonna ask you, you want to do linebackers or you want to do offensive linemen?
Let's do linebackers.
Let's do linebackers. Let's do the second level defenders, right? Discuss those linebackers that fell within our top 50. Let's discuss that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The tournament is here. One of the best times of the year. Brackets, buzzer beaters, upsets. It's nonstop action from tip-off to final cut down. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to stay in the action all tournament long. And here's the best part. You get up to $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can mix it up however you want. Game picks, futures, or even same game parlays for bigger potential payouts. It's perfect for the tournament because every day there's something new, different matchups, new storylines, and more ways to get involved as the bracket unfolds. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to sign up today. FanDuel.com to get in on the action. Don't forget to check out the Everyday Club for ad-free episodes and access to our group chat via the Discord with me, with Keith, with other listeners of the show. Tap the link in the show notes or go to LockedOnNFLDraft.supercast.com to join. Linebackers, Keith, and I'm going to list them off here for the family. At 5 on our list, on our top 50 big board, still going to mention Arvell Reese. We mentioned him at edge. He's playing both positions right now until we figure out where a team's going to draft him to play. He's both. So he's at 5 at linebacker/edge. Sonny Styles is at 6. Really love C.J. Allen. He's at 24. When you get into outside of the top 25, our next linebacker is Jacob Rodriguez at 40, and then we finish it up with Anthony Hill Jr. at 43. Keith, I want to talk about Jacob Rodriguez real quick. And this is not like revisionist history and white player to white player comp, right? I'm not doing that. But, and I'm about to pull it up just to make sure I'm not tripping off of like the measurables. The way he plays reminds me of the defensive rookie of the year from this past draft, Carson Schlesinger, right? Okay. And now I'm going to make sure I got, Jacob Rodriguez's measurements right. I'm going to mark draftable right now because I just pulled. I want to make sure. He came in at 6'1", 3/8", 231. Carson Schlesinger came in at 6'2" and a half, 242. Let's see, arm length 30 and 7/8. For Rodriguez, arm length was 31 and 5/8. Right? I don't think we had a 40 time for Schlesinger, while Jacob Rodriguez went a 4.57 and everything. Below 7 in the 3-cone. Short shuttle was 4.19. We didn't have any of that for Carson Schlesinger. The reason why I pair those two together, again, guys, it's not white linebacker to white linebacker comps. It's the fact that they both play with really high instincts. They follow the ball, they see the ball, they get to the ball. And what allowed Carson Schlesinger to play his game, he was behind a really talented defensive line in Cleveland, where you had Mason Graham, he was the 3rd overall pick in the draft last year. Myles Garrett, the NFL sack leader in the season, right? He was behind a really strong defensive line to where he could float to the ball, make tackles. I think he would have had over 100 tackles or something like that, or averaging close to 110 tackles a game or whatever the case may be. But it was the instinct, and you saw those instincts at UCLA. It was more of a question of athletically, was he going to be able to match up in the NFL? And then physically, was he going to be able to match up in the NFL? And he checked those boxes during his rookie season. I think the instincts of a Jacob Rodriguez, the speed, the ability to play fast, to see things quickly. I think Jacob Rodriguez, not saying he's going to be defensive rookie of the year, but I think he can absolutely have a big time impact as an off-ball linebacker in this next season, the 2026 season, albeit depending on where he lands and what role, which linebacker spot he's playing. I think this dude can absolutely be a big time baller for a defense.
Yeah, I think for Jacob, DP is going to come down to what he's done this past year, right? And he even did it in the Senior Bowl, was creating turnovers, right? Finding a way to force turnovers and create turnovers. And he has the instincts for that, right? Being able to punch the football out, interceptions, things like that. So I think if he can find a way to consistently do that in the NFL, I mean, listen, like there's immense value. And I think some NFL team is going to value that, right? Like, you know what, this guy knows how to turn the football over. And I say this, I look at 3-4 schemes, DP, where he's the more athletic inside linebacker, right? You know, you got your big downhill thumper, like and almost what they did with Patrick Queen at times, right? Where they let Patrick, like and they forced him in position just to be the roamer, and then they had the big thumper inside linebacker to, kind of let the weak side guy and let him play the middle. So I think that can be opportunity. DP, the guy I want to talk about is CJ Allen. I feel like there's not a lot of conversation about him, and I think post the NFL Combine, some measurables, right? Him falling short, I think in some arm length measurables kind of have people out on him. DP, I'm not out on this young man. And to me, he gives prime candidate to fall in the second round. That you look back 5 years from now and be like, man, how did that guy fall to the second round, right? Downhill thumper. I think he flows sideline to sideline. He plays physical exactly how you want. I look at, I'm throwing this team again, but it's because they're covered so much and everybody knows their hosts, right? The Dallas Cowboys. You need a linebacker. Like you need somebody with a physical mentality. He's that, right? He's going to run full speed into somebody. And it's been a while since you've had those type of players that are like, you know what? I'm the middle linebacker. I got B gap to B gap. Don't worry about this. This me. Anybody come through this hole, I promise you I'm going to hit them, right? You need linebackers with that type of mentality. And it's not just the Cowboys. There's plenty of other teams, but I think he may be one of those players, DP, that falls to the second round. And I feel about, and you talk about the Carson Schlesinger. Carson fell to the second round, if I'm not mistaken, right? He was a second round pick, him and Junkins for the Cleveland Browns. I like Carson as a top 25 pick. I thought he should have been a first rounder. And I think from that type of comp, right, it's just as far as, I don't know what we're thinking. These guys are talented, though, right? And we're overlooking them. And you've seen exactly what Carson Schlesinger did as a rookie in the NFL, went straight for a defensive rookie of the year, right? And so I can see CJ Allen fall into a good situation, the right spot. And you're like, man, okay, like this is going to turn really good. Another team that could be looking for him, I think the Chicago Bears, right? They lost a couple linebackers.
Tremaine Edmonds.
Yeah, Tremaine Edmonds. Like, and listen, we know that the Chicago Bears, they value linebackers, right? Dick Buckus, all of those guys that they've drafted, Roquan. We had Roquan. Just they value linebackers, so he could be another potential landing spot. The Chicago Bears could be.
And Keith, I think a lot of people, and again, I love draft season. It's what we do. It's what makes this podcast what it is. Sometimes I feel like NBA, you got those diehard NBA fans like, man, I can never get too much basketball. Then you realize, like, man, the season is really long. That's where I am with the draft, because like the longer the process gets, the deeper we get into the process. The takes on social media, they just become more and more wild. So like you got people over analyzing pro day footage, right? I'm thinking to myself, dang, when did we start valuing like this over actual in-game movement skills and everything else? Because I've seen people say, I don't want CJ Allen dropping off in coverage. I'm like, I remember watching him in the summer. I'm like, this dude covers just fine. Like, you know what I mean? He gets to his spots. He's very aware. He keeps his head on the swivel.
For a middle linebacker. If you're grading him on a safety or cornerback scale, fine. But if you're grading him for he's your inside linebacker that's responsible for covering B gap to B gap, right? Then he does it just fine. He covers like a middle linebacker.
And it's all based off of, like, again, a zoomed in video from his pro day that people were not in attendance for. So you don't know how much ground he covered or how quickly he covered it. But again, I trust the tape more than I trust clip on social media. When you mentioned as you were talking, I decided to pull it up because if you remember, Keith, when I brought him up in over the summer, I mentioned the name and you just mentioned it, Roquan Smith.
Yeah, yep.
Roquan Smith was also roughly 6'1", right? Same thing as C.J. Allen. He was 236. C.J. Allen was 230 at the combine. Roquan did do the 40. He ran the 4.51. We don't have a 40 time for C.J. Allen and everything, but at the end of the day, I see almost the exact same type of player. Physical, aggressive, violent, like a guy that's going to blitz with his hair on fire. He's a striker, everything. Run defense, dropping off in the zone cover. And again, I don't need you to play a bunch. I'm not asking you to guard Brock Bowers up the seam. Like, I got safeties for that. Like, you know what I mean? What I ask you to do is get underneath that seam route so that quarterback has to make a tough, tight window throw, right? He can't just layer it over you because I got a safety sitting there in the middle of the field. Like, if you're not there, he can kind of back shoulder it in a sense and make it an easier pitch and catch for Brock. Make it a difficult throw for the quarterback. So when I look at C.J. Allen, man, I think he's one of the most talented linebackers in this class, and he's just impactful. I trust the tape, man. Trust it. The instincts. Same thing we talk about with Jacob Rodriguez and Carson Schwarzenegger. The instincts make you play faster than you typically see guys just move. We see a lot of 4-3 guys that don't move that way on the football field during actual games. So I'd rather play speed over time speed or pro day movements, as people like to call it.
Yep, 100%. Another team, DP, real quick as we transition. Tampa Bay Bucks, Levante David just retired, right? That would be another potential landing spot for CJ Allen.
Real quick.
Yeah,
Anthony Hill Jr., under discussed, not getting enough love in this draft cycle. Not really sure why, but young man can play. Athletic, sideline to sideline range. If it wasn't for Arvell Reese and darn Sonny Styles, he would have been talked about as one of the best athletes at the combine because he tested well. So I just wanted to highlight Anthony Hill Jr. out of Texas. He came in at 43 on our big board, linebacker. This young man can play and do multiple things in your front seven.
Yep. All right, let's do this, DP. We saved the best for last, right? We're talking offensive linemen. The offensive linemen that fell within our top 50 big board at Locked On NFL Draft. Let's discuss that coming up next.
Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day. And thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in America. Is all because of you. Offensive lineman games are won and lost, Keith. Where? In the trenches. If you can't win the trench warfare, guys, you're not winning games, right? Ask Drake May in the Super Bowl. If you can't protect me, I can't throw the football. We can't do anything on offense. So we're going to talk about where these guys land. Keith, our first offensive lineman is offensive tackle Francis C.C. Maui Noah. He's at number 9. We got Spencer Fano. Got him listed as interior offensive lineman, but I think his arm length came in longer and his wingspan was good at his pro day. So O-line, that's where he is. He's at number 11. We got Venga Ione, interior offensive lineman out of Penn State. He's at 13. And then the next guy, our next offensive lineman, Monroe Freeling at 28, offensive tackle out of Georgia. We have Caden Proctor at 31, offensive tackle out of Alabama. We got Caleb Lomu from Utah, Spencer Fano's teammate, left tackle. He's at 36. Emmanuel Pregnon, interior offensive lineman out of Oregon. He's at 39. Got Blake Miller, offensive tackle, right tackle out of Clemson at 45, Keith. I would say that this offensive line class, it may not be exceptional, but it's a good group. This is a good group. Now, do you have the bona fide star left? You know how this narrative crap works in this industry, Keith. It's the draft class is depending on how good the quarterbacks are. That shouldn't be the case. If we got really good players, let's say this is a good class, we just don't have the quarterback class you want. The offensive line class is the same thing. Well, if we don't got 2 or 3 bona fide left tackles, the offensive line class isn't great. And it's that's not true. It's 4 other positions. You know what I mean? You need 5 offensive linemen to block for your quarterback and open up running lanes. So when you look at, man, I love Venga, I love Emmanuel Pregnon. I'm talking about Blake Miller. being at Clemson for years now. He's 54 consecutive starts. And while I was lower on him at the beginning of his career, he has consistently climbed up and evolved and got better, especially in pass pro. He was always good in the run game, but his pass pro has really gotten better. I think he's taken this draft process. He's done reps at left and right tackle, kind of showcasing that athleticism and everything that he has as well, Keith. Just wanted to highlight the fact that this is a good group of offensive linemen, whether you're looking for tackles or guards or centers. This is a class where you can find yourself some plus level starters.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like starter, right? Like I feel really good about what they can do. And maybe there isn't, and maybe that's the decline, right, of a guy like Monroe Freeling, is because he may be the closest thing to the prototype left tackle, right? And we know when you're talking about like a flagship for carrying a position, a prototype left tackle is is the equivalent of having that quarterback that's 6'5", 220 and runs a 4.6, right? Like he kind of carries the flag for the rest of the class. And so obviously he was a late identifier in the draft process, right? It's been Spencer Fano, Francis Morgawa, those type of Caleb Low moves, things like that. I want to ask you with Spencer, DP. Where do you fall with Spencer? Because there's been a lot of conversation about the arm length. And do you think there's a chance that he falls to the second round because he's a right tackle with not adequate arm length?
So I think he still goes round one. I really like his tape, 6'5", 311. When I first saw the arm length, I was like, sheesh. I think they said the arm length was shorter than Will Campbell's, right? So when it came out of the combine, I said, man, he's got to play guard. If we're talking about kicking Will Campbell into guard now, like because of the arm length issues, which newsflash, guys, it wasn't the arm length that was the problem. It was the fact he had a really bad knee injury that happened during the season, and it like truly limited his move. I didn't know how bad it was until I got to the combine, talked to some people close to the Patriots, and they told me that. I was like, yeah, the knee was bad. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes a ton of sense. They was like, yeah, we're fine with him at tackle. We just got to get him back healthy. So, but I was talking to my guy, Brandon Thorne, who, evaluates offensive line. He does the O-line masterminds with well, man, why am I blanking? Duke Manuel and everything, right? So I remember talking to Brandon during one of our meetings, probably right after the combine. I said, hey, how do you feel about Fano with the arm length? He said, check the wingspan. The wingspan was 80 1/4. I said, okay, never mind then. Like he was like, yeah, the wingspan is good. Like he's fine with the wingspan. The arm length came in shorter than the Will Campbell's, but his wingspan was longer than Will Campbell. I was like, man, you know what? I tap out. This wingspan, arm length stuff. I'm out of it. I don't want nothing to do with it no more, man.
It's too difficult to kind of the quote unquote contextualize, right? Like
contextualize.
It's too difficult because
like, so I got longer arms but a shorter wingspan. Like, how is this happening? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, you know what, guys, y'all got it. I'm just gonna look at the numbers, see how a guy plays, and watch the film.
WTF, watch the film, man. Let it be.
But I rock with Spencer Fano, Keith. And I know he took some snaps at the combine after his combine workout and everything. But I think and I'm gonna tell you, the reason why I don't think he falls around two. I don't know if you saw the report. The NFL owners meeting or whatever league meeting is happening and everything. And Dan Campbell came out and said that he's almost ready. He's at the point where he wants to move Penei Sewell back to left tackle. He hasn't played left tackle since 2023. They lost Taylor Decker due to a contract disputes or whatever the case may be. He's no longer there as their left tackle. And I was like, this makes a lot of sense because that sets you up to draft an already like a true right tackle also, that doesn't have to move.
Yeah, and this is a heavy two of the better. Almost the distance, right? Until Monroe Freeling kind of popped up. The two best offensive tackles were right tackles, right? Talking about Francis Mugawa and Spencer Fano. I asked you about that because in my latest mock draft, I didn't have him in the first round. And obviously a mock is a what you think may happen, right? And I know everybody makes and this is where I stand with the arm length, DP. And I've always been like this. Like don't matter. Like, right? I watch the film and I let it be what it's going to be, right? And then if it shows up on film, then I note it down as an issue, right? But if it doesn't show up, then I'm like, I'm not going to make it a problem that's not a problem, right? And because like you said, right, and we're talking about the 33 and a half versus a 32 even, which is an inch and a half, which you're talking about physical combat, like, and we're talking about punch timing. That's the matter of extending your elbow fully and not extending it fully, right? Like that's what we're coming down to at the end of the day, right? Like, just at what point do you make contact with them, right? So for some players, obviously it's going to matter, and if it shows up on film. But for Spencer, like I said, in my mock draft, I had that situation. But for me personally, like projecting him, I think he's going to be a good tackle. I like him. I like him a lot. And I think at the very worst, right? I think we had concerns about DPU. What's those two names? Graham Barton, Peter Skoronski. We did the same thing with those two players, right? As far as, man, do they have the adequate length, things like that. He, to me, falls in that bucket, but I think he can play in almost any position, right? And to me, that has immense value. So if you have a need at tackle, I think you just rock and roll with it and let it be what it's going to be, because the film, to me, is good enough to take him.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think, with his wingspan being passing the threshold, from the looks of it, I think he's going to be drafted to play tackle. But then again, I think it all depends on the team too. Like, if you're think about the Ravens, right? Like, let's say Vengai only gets drafted before the Ravens are picking at 14, but Spencer Fano still on the board, right? Why can't you draft Spencer Fano and then let him play guard? Right, him and Francis Mawinoa. I remember I was at Mawinoa's at his podium at the combine, and he said it. He's like, "I will play whatever position the coaches need me to play. If they want me to play either tackle, I'll play either tackle. If you want me to play guard, I'll play guard." He's like, it doesn't matter to me." And I think Spencer Fano had the same sentiment, right? So it's like, okay, if Venga's gone, yeah, I know you can say, well, I could wait for day 2, get round 2 to get Emmanuel Pregnon. Let me get one of the best pure offensive linemen in Spencer Fano, and let me put him at guard. At the end of the day, what I had in Daniel Falele, I don't want ever again at right guard. I don't want to deal with that headache of not knowing that my quarterback, like, your quarterback shouldn't be cussing out his offensive lineman consistently. Like Lamar Jackson, who was one of the more, like, you don't see Lamar get like that, but we saw Lamar get like that towards the end of the season, where he's like blatantly cussing out Daniel Falele. And it was just like, I'm tired of this. And it was just like, that's fair, because the film is really bad. So I think for Spencer Fano, man, I think he's gonna go top 20. Some team's gonna pick him. Like I said, I don't think either him or Mawinoa. 17, the Detroit Lions are on the clock, unless they make some surprise. And I think they do have they brought in a veteran to it that was going to potentially, I think it was Larry Borum, who used to be with the Chicago Bears and everything, who played, I think he started at left tackle when I think Justin Fields was there and stuff like that. He's a serviceable tackle, but Keith, as we all know, do you want serviceable? Do you want good? You know what I mean? Yep. And when you got Jared Goff back there, you better want good. Like, I want Jared Goff clean in the pocket, where he can step up, climb, reset his feet, and go. So at the end of the day, this offensive line class, Keith, as we talked about, it's a good group, man. Like I said, Proctor is going to be a guy that's going to be polarized depending on what teams want to play him, how they view him. But my guy, Keith, like I'm telling you, and I think teams are going to get a steal with him probably. I think the spot I probably see him going in round 1 will be Houston. If they wanted to add a young guard, is Emmanuel Pregnon. Yeah, I think day 2.
In my mock draft, I had him taking him in the first round. I think they need it. They need it. I think to me, he's one of the more underrated prospects in this draft. I don't think he's far behind Vega, in my opinion. And he plays with a level of tenacity and finishing. Like you see him play through the whistle. Like he wants to put people in the ground. And I think that's going to be attractive, especially to a lot of O-line coaches. He's going to be a guy that O-line coaches are going to pound the table for to be like, wait, hold on. That right there is what I like.
He's built like a bulldozer. Like he's got that bulldozer type of frame where he wants to move. Same thing with him and Venga, man. Like, I do think they're a lot closer. I think they're closer than people really believe in everything, because a lot of people don't really watch O-line to that extent. But I think both of these guys are going to be like corners. Like, we don't always talk about cornerstone guards, but guys that like you want to give them a second contract. Like, you know what? Yeah, I need you on this offensive line.
Big paydays. Yep, I agree. With DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying Shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all can talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.